Alrighty, folks, are you ready to get this show on the road? I am so pumped. Let me pop over here so y'all can see me and let's dive into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Adobe Live. My name is VooDoo Val and I'm going to be your host this morning for challenge number 3 of the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. We're going to be diving into creating some custom brushes this morning, and we're going to be celebrating black hair. I'm really excited about this because there are so many wonderful styles and textures and curl patterns and such for black hair, but it is also something that a lot of people struggle to illustrate and struggle to paint because there's a lot of intricacies there. Even I, as somebody with very curly hair, I even have to put a lot of effort, a lot of work into painting beautiful black hair sometimes. And so I would like to share with you how I create brushes and things. So if you folks are illustrators or graphic designers and you would like to portray locks, curls, coils, waves, anything like that, you can create some custom brushes. Make your own custom curly hair brush pack today. So I'm really pumped and we are going to dive into it. If you would like to follow along with me, please check the description below where you can download the starter file. There's some assets and things in there for you to get started along with me today. And it looks a little something like this. This is our hairbrush. Celebrating hair. No, you can celebrate hair with us even if you do not have hair, for sure. Nice eyeliner. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't usually wear eyeliner. I was trying to be fleeky today since we're all about style this morning. So this is the hair challenge starter file. It says create custom brushes that simulate curls, braids, and locks. Experiment with brush settings like direction, texture, and spacing. Save brushes into your own hairbrush pack. And as you can see, I actually created a dreadlocks brush, which I think is pretty fun, and I've styled our challenge title with it today. So we're going to be painting or creating this exact brush that I've created here, and then we're going to be creating some other different hair textures and stuff. And you can feel free to do any kind of hair texture. If you want to do straight hair, if you want to do something that's a little more wavy, go for it. I chose to do a black hair custom brush pack today because I just wanted to celebrate it a little bit, and also as an illustrator, and as I said earlier, sometimes it can be difficult to get that texture right. So if we start with brushes, we can do some great illustrations that are very accurate, so to speak. Morning, Jeff, Ray, hello. Oh my gosh, this helps so much. Oh, Ray, I'm so happy you think so. I'm very excited to dive into it. So I am going to go ahead and hide some of my assets here just so that we can take a look at what we've got. I'm going to come in and hide, I'm just going to hide the whole info folder, and we'll just work on our background here. And then I'm going to look in here to our assets, and what we have is we have a strange little hair shape, like a clump of hair, and then we have this scribbly texture, which you can use to follow along with me, but I'm going to show you how I made all of these things so that you can do your own. So we are going to start with this. So this is like a I know that it looks a little odd, but this is, if you can imagine it, is like a portion of this this brush here. And so I'm going to use this one that we have here, and I'm going to doodle a couple other portions, because basically what we're going to do is this is going to be kind of like the standard brushes you have in Photoshop. Like, for example, if I open my brush pack, the hard round opacity brush here. This is, let me go ahead and turn dissolve off. This is just a circle. It's literally just a circle, and it's got the spacing turned down on it. But if we look at our brush settings, you can see here, if I move the spacing, it's just a circle that is being repeated over and over and over again. So if we create ourselves a piece of hair and then put the spacing on it, we can start to create kind of a lock or a braid pattern, and so on and so forth. So I am going to go ahead and use this piece, but then we're also going to create something else. So we're also going to come in and create, I'm going to just snag some of the black there. And we can also create a braid if we want. So I can illustrate it, but if you are not somebody who has a stylus, you can also use the pen tool for this. So I'll illustrate it and use the pen tool. So with a braid, it's kind of a heart shape, really. That interlocks. So if you want to do braids that are stylized, you could draw yourself a heart and kind of color that in a little bit like this. And then you could just duplicate this with Control or Command J. Oops, not that, not both of them. I want to make sure that this is actually on its own layer. Let's go ahead and select this. And we will actually say, just a quick tip for those of you working, if you've ever created something or illustrated something and it's on the wrong layer, you realize you've put it on the layer you didn't mean to, like I just did, you can actually right click and say layer via cut, and that will just cut it and put it on its own layer. So now I can say Control J to duplicate, or Command J if you're working on a Mac, and I can just start to bring this down. Maybe we will actually select both of these and kind of write that just like that. And we can start to kind of duplicate this and create like an interlocking shape. That could be a braid brush there if we wanted to. We could also, if I Control E or Command E to merge all selected layers there, we could duplicate this and we could make it more detailed if we wanted to. We could come in with our brush and we could add some kind of wayward strands, something like this. Get that going, some little strands kind of hanging out, and make them just, you know, not perfectly symmetrical. That's a way that you could do this as well. Something like that, and that could be a portion of our braid brush if we wanted to go that route. If you don't have a stylus and you are trying to figure out how to do this with your mouse, you could come in and do something more like this. If we hit P on our keyboard to access our pen tool, we could do just, you know, kind of create shapes to work with. Like that, and we can, let me hold Control and bring this up like so. And I want to zoom in here just to make sure we close our shape properly. And then I want to, there we go. So if we wanted to do something like this, then I could start duplicating them and flip horizontal after I free transform and start locking pieces into place like so. Maybe I'll pull that up like that. And select both of these and kind of, oops, Control J to group them, or Control G to group them, and start grouping them into place. So you can see how, you know, if you're an illustrator or if you are a graphic designer, you can start to create the same kind of shapes. I can come back in here and we could alter this a little bit if we wanted to. Maybe I'll pull this out like so and make that a little bit more round. And then we could do the same thing to this one here and just try to kind of make them not as symmetrical. You know, if we want to, let's see, make them a little bit different, give it a little bit of asymmetry. Yeah, something like that. Maybe this side comes out a little more. And you can just start kind of creating a braid shape. You could come in with masks, and you could grab your, maybe your polygonal lasso tool. Okay, this is how you could get cutouts if you're working with a mouse. You could come in with the polygonal lasso tool. Which one is this? This is this one right here. And maybe I'm just tapping like this, and I can just, you know, make some selections, hold shift to keep adding to the selection, and I'm just tapping to get some kind of cutout areas. Maybe we'll do one this way. Something like that. And then we can mask these out. So maybe I will come in with my paint bucket tool and I'll paint bucket details in because I'm going quick since we're doing a challenge today. But spend some time with it and use the tools that you have to your advantage. So there's, you know, just some kind of ideas of how you could go about this with the mouse and start doing some cutouts and things. But I am going to use my stylus for this just so that we can be fast moving in 30 minutes here. So we've got, you know, some kind of braid textures. I think it also would be interesting to do if I wanted to create, let me see, Control Shift in or Command Shift in if you're working on a Mac to create a new layer. Maybe it would be cool to do like just some curly hair. So I can do some like just a chunk of hair that would be like curly. Maybe some waves in there. Another thing too, as you kind of go along with this, you can also kind of use the curvature pen tool instead of the regular pen tool if you wanted to get, you know, because we're working with hair here, so things are going to be pretty smooth, pretty fluid and organic looking. So if I wanted to add to this with the pen tool, I could go right click my my pen tool here and snag the curvature pen tool from the drop down. And the curvature pen tool just allows me to create perfectly curved pieces like so. It kind of curved that. And then I can come in with my regular pen tool and we can select this and I can kind of start to drag that out like that to kind of make it more like a section of hair, perhaps something that is a little sharper like that. Control that and kind of bring that over like so, so it kind of looks like a piece of hair sticking out. You see there's a lot of different methods that can go with kind of creating this sort of thing. So if we come in, I'm just going to add some more little hair types to get this going, just a little piece of hair. And I like this pretty well. And I don't know, it'll take some experimenting and stuff just to really see if the hair portions and textures that you're creating will really work for a brush. But that's where the experimentation comes in, right? Is that you can edit any of the settings for any brushes as you go along and kind of create exactly what you want. Now, tip for creating brushes, okay? This is something you really got to know. When you create something that is going to be a custom brush, and we're about to define some brush presets and things, whatever kind of shape you design to create a brush out of, make sure that the color of it is black. And I'm going to show you why that's so important. So I'm going to hide my background here just so we have our transparent background. And I'm even going to hide the newer hair shapes that we made just because I want to just work with our little hair texture piece here. Now, if I were to, let me duplicate this real quick, and I'm just going to drag this over. Maybe we make this just for the sake of experimentation. Maybe I'll make this a light blue. Okay, now I'm going to select this, and an easy way to select, especially for a brush preset, you want to select the shape that you've created as close to the edges of that shape as you can so that it's an accurate brush. Instead of selecting with the lasso tool or the polygonal lasso tool, you could just hold Control or Command if you're working on a Mac and click the icon of that layer and it'll select everything that's on that layer. So now I have this selected, and if I come up to Edit and Define Brush Preset, you can see it's created the brush, and I can call this Lock Test. All right, let's go ahead and hit OK. Now when I paint with it, let me make sure I'm deselected with Control D, and I'll turn my background on. Now when I paint with it, it's actually, this isn't too terrible because it's a solid color. So maybe the color blue wasn't so great, but it depending on what kind of brush you have used, that's another thing. If you use a brush that has like transparency also to make your brush preset, sometimes the the solidness of the design of your brush does not work properly or as intended. So I make all of my brushes, my brush pieces black, and I make them sharp so that you cannot see through any part of them unless I specifically myself put a cutout. But if we're gonna make this a serious brush, this is what we're gonna do. We'll go ahead and hide this again just so we can see everything we're doing. Another thing too is notice that the hair piece is on its side. We made it on its side because we're going to change the direction and the settings and everything, and I want it to be able to paint in like a curl so that it all follows itself. But if I turn it this way, it's going to paint from the side of this in our file, and we don't want that. We want this to paint in a row, so to speak. So we're going to turn it on its side. I'm going to select this once more, and I am going to come up to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and notice, okay, here is the difference. So you notice how the color I chose to do that experiment with the color of the shape that you used to make the brush is not going to be super accurate unless it's dark black. Here you can see this one is black and the icon for the brush is perfectly like white. Meaning that it's a very opaque brush. The icon for the previous experiment you can see is more of a gray color, so it is was not 100% opaque. And if you do that and you have some transparency or it's not a stark black color, no matter how much you crank up the opacity of your brush, it will never fully be 100% opaque, which can cause a lot of confusion and disappointment as you use them in your projects. So we're going to call this, brush Textured Locs, like so. And I'm going to say, okay. So this is our Textured Locs brush. Now we're going to come in and edit this because in our brush settings you can see that it is I'm just painting with the shape full on, and that's really not what we want to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to edit the spacing, and we're going to actually crank the spacing way out because we want to show all of the texture and design for our brush. And then we're going to come over to Shape Dynamics, and under Angle Jitter, we're going to not mess with the angle. You could mess with it if you really wanted to, but we're going to go to Control and say Direction. So you can see now that really, if we turn that off, you can see how it's just all lined up straight. But as we turn on direction, now the direction of our brush is going to dictate this. So if I come out here and I start painting, you can see that it kind of goes in a direction. We maybe want to make our brush smaller so we can really get the full effect of this. There we go. The larger it is, maybe the more difficult it's going to be to show that smoothness. But when your brush is small, you can see now I'm creating this like curly lock kind of strand, which is really great. But we can do more with this. We can do more. We can add a texture so that it looks even more like thick hair. And one of those things is that you can do with that is apply a texture to your actual brush. So if you come over here to texture, you can actually add a texture to whatever brush you're using, and you can do that by defining some kind of texture as a pattern, because you can select from your patterns here in the brush settings. You can see these are all the patterns I've made, and I have my texture that I have included here set as a pattern, and you can use mine so that you can set it as a pattern in your Photoshop, or you can create your own. And all I've done is I've created this tileable scribble here, and to define it as a pattern, all you have to do is Control or Command A to select your canvas around the area that you'd like to define as a pattern. If you just do a small tile and that doesn't reach the edges, you can do my trick with the Control or Command click on the layer icon just to select that, and then you can come to Edit and Define Pattern, and this will add, we can go ahead and say yes, and then when you come over here to your Patterns panel or go to Window and select Patterns here, if you don't see your Patterns panel, you can see that down here it is added there. And then when we come into our brush, let's go ahead and hide this, come into our brush, go to Texture, select that pattern from here, and you can see that now if I deselect make myself a new layer, I can start to see, actually not quite. We gotta kind of edit our pattern just a little bit. Let's come back into texture. Let's go ahead and I'm thinking we can see that it's scaling just a little bit here, but I kind of want to change my depth. So let's go ahead and set the mode to subtract. And then let's turn the scale down. And that subtract is really important because that subtract actually will subtract the shape of your pattern. And then you can kind of add a little bit of the other settings in here as you see fit. I think I want to bring that down a little bit. That kind of sucks out too much from my piece. But just kind of, let's see, we can add the texture to each tip, which maybe is not bad, but I want to, let's see. There we go. There we go. Kind of turn up the brightness just a little bit. I feel like it's still not adding enough. If we contrast that maybe a little bit more, and you're gonna have to kind of, you know, figure out for yourself what exactly is right for your brush. But let me see. I don't want to run out of time here because I'm kind of messing with stuff just a little bit. Maybe if we crank that depth down, I want to add a little more of the solid nature of the brush back into what we've got going on. So let me see, we've got our spacing widened. We've got our angle jitter set to direction. We've set our texture. Let's bump our contrast up and see. That adds a little bit of it. We can crank our depth up. That adds, it kind of gets rid of that ghostly nature, but there's still, we'll put the texture to each tip. Still a little bit. Our mode is set to subtract, and maybe we can crank our scale up even more. I wonder if that'll do it. I feel like, let me go ahead and, there we go. We had invert. I was wondering for a second there, make sure invert is not checked because that will mess up your brush. I was like, why is it giving me the cutouts? See, even when you use Photoshop for a very long time, you can still be forgetful of certain things. So now let's see, let's change our scale down just a little bit and see, there we go. Now we have a nice kind of texture brush, and maybe somebody, yeah, Becca was saying invert. That was definitely it right there. So yeah, you can scale it, you can create something a little more detailed. And then remember, this is something that's very important because this has happened to me many a time and it's totally ruined my day every time this has happened. When you create a brush and when you edit the brush settings, please, please keep in mind that if you do not save your brush's settings and you switch to a different brush, when you come back to that original brush, all these lovely settings will not be set anymore. So once you finish a brush and you've got it exactly the way you want to have it, come up to the hamburger menu on your brushes panel and say new brush preset, and I'm going to call this textured lock 2. I'm going to say okay. And then in my brush panels, you can see I've done a few tests for this, but I can bring this up to where I have all of my main brushes, and I'll put this in my own brush pack and use that. So you can create all different kinds of hair textures and things with this. You can do waves, you can do curls, you can do more locks, you could do straight hair, you could do anything that you want. You could do coils, whatever you can draw as the basis of that hair texture shape, you can make into a brush that will help you to paint more hair. And this is really great. And if you're a painter like me, you can use this as a base to paint on. If you're a graphic designer, you can use this as the end product for hair texture, whatever you like. You can stylize it, you can make it more realistic, whatever it is you want to do. And you can create some nifty stuff. Like, I'm actually pretty proud of our challenge title for today. I thought it was actually pretty neat. I drew hair with hair and put some beads in it, and I had a good time. But that is my curly hair hair custom brush challenge for you folks today, and I had a great time. I hope that you folks have enjoyed hanging out with me today. I can't wait to see what kind of hair brushes you create, and I will be back tomorrow morning with another challenge. But stay tuned, because right after me, we've got more daily creative challenges coming from Pixie and Storm, which is awesome. So stay tuned, and I will see you folks soon. Adios, everyone.